Warning: this is mature content. Listeners' discretion is advised. If you are easily disgusted or faint of heart, stop now. You have been warned.
Johnny stared up at the walls covered with his lower intestines. They were strung up like garland at Christmas. They glistened under the dim glimmer of light as the mix of body fluid and blood glazed over them. Blood adorned the walls like a bad Jackson Pollock painting, some fresh, some old and crusty. The stench of rotting carcasses and the pungent smell of a freshly opened gut wall mixed together like a nauseous cloud. You know that smell that comes after you open the gut wall of a deer, that smell of forbidden gas, that vulture candy. He could hear faint whimpering in the background. Could it be Sarah? It didn't matter. His head pounded from blood loss. Looking around and unable to move, he saw that his lower body was gone, or at the very least, it was scattered among the pile of rotting flesh. Johnny's mind raced, unsure why he wasn't dead yet. He couldn't yell out as his diaphragm had been ripped out as well. This sack of flesh realized he wasn't even breathing. Subtle bubbles of phlegm and blood spat up out of his mouth. What hell was this? What evil and unborn devilry was this? Joni could feel his arm as he reached over the bodies, grabbing something solid but slippery due to the rotting fluids covering it. He pulled himself over, and he could hear the whimpering grow louder. He could almost see the corner of a forehead twitch in the pale light of death. He forged forward and lifted the wet hair. The head rolled over, bellowing a scream. It wasn't even attached to a body. Her jaw was broken half off with slabs of flesh adorning shattered bone. Its eyes rolled into the back of its head. The high-pitched scream was like a siren for the keeper. It reverberated in Johnny's head like a drum, pounding out what little sanity he had left. He gripped his ears as if to silence it and squinted his eyes in pain. How had he found himself here? What is this place? Why? Wasn't he dead? Earlier, much earlier. Johnny Matthews had been planning this camping trip for months. Pierce Pond in the Appalachian Mountains offered perfect seclusion for him and his girlfriend Sarah to escape city stress and reconnect with nature. The GPS showed a simple route: state highway to county road to dirt access road leading directly to the pond. Turn left at the fork, Sarah read from their printed directions as they bounced along the increasingly rough dirt road. Should be about 2 miles to the camping area. The late afternoon sun filtered through dense tree canopy, casting long shadows across the narrow track. Johnny's pickup truck handled the ruts and rocks easily, but he drove carefully to avoid damaging the undercarriage on hidden obstacles. They reached the fork sooner than expected. 2 dirt roads diverged into the forest, both looking equally traveled. The road signs that should have marked the correct route were missing, leaving only rusted posts jutting from the undergrowth. Left or right? Johnny asked, squinting at their map. The hand-drawn directions weren't detailed enough to clarify which path led to Pierce Pond. Left looks more worn, Sarah observed. Probably gets more traffic from campers. Johnny turned left and continued deeper into the mountains. The road grew narrower, branches scraping against the truck's sides as they wound through increasingly dense forest. After 20 minutes, Sarah began to worry they'd made the wrong choice. "This doesn't feel right," she said. "We should have reached the pond by now." Johnny was about to agree when they crested a small hill and saw something in the road ahead. It was dark and fairly large, strung across the road. Johnny crept up to a stop. There was no way to go around it with the dense vegetation, so he told Sarah to stay inside. As he opened the door, the smell hit like a wet garbage bag sitting in the sun. Somewhere between a rotten diaper and a dead wild boar, he approached it slowly. It was what was left of a black lab, its body contorted, its ribs splayed open like a sick butterfly, maggots crawling in and out of the meat. even though it didn't seem to have been dead that long. The intestines, or what was left of them, were partially draped on the road, making it seem larger than it was, the tongue laid out in distress of the slaughter. It seemed obvious that this was an intentional death with laces of cruelty Johnny hadn't seen before. It was all he could do to keep from vomiting or crying. No one likes to see a dog that had to suffer. He motioned to Sarah to stay there. Johnny stood with his hands on his hips and looked through the trees for a sound or trace of a culprit. Nothing but locust. He grabbed a broken branch and hooked it under the ribs, then drug it out of the way as best he could. As he got back in, Sarah asked, "What was it?" Johnny replied, "It's best left unsaid." He didn't have to say it. She could smell a sad death on him as the door forced the stench into the car. The road curved toward a small clearing where a dilapidated cabin sat among towering pines. Smoke drifted from a stone chimney, indicating recent habitation despite the structure's obvious decay. "Maybe whoever lives there can give us directions," Sarah suggested, though something about the isolated dwelling made her uneasy. They parked near the cabin and approached cautiously. The building looked ancient, weathered gray wood, sagging roof, windows covered with yellowed plastic sheeting. A rusty pickup truck from the 1970s sat beside the structure, more rust than metal. Before they could knock, the front door opened with a prolonged creak. An elderly woman emerged, bent with age but moving with surprising alertness. Her clothes were clean but decades out of style, and her pale eyes regarded them with suspicion rather than welcome. "What do you want?" she asked bluntly, her voice carrying the harsh edge of someone unaccustomed to visitors. Johnny explained, "We're trying to get to Pierce Pond. We think we took a wrong turn at the fork back there." The old woman studied them for a long moment, her gaze taking in their modern camping gear and clean appearance with obvious disapproval. "Pierce Pond's the other way," she said curtly. "Back where you came from. Take the right fork instead of left," Sarah asked. "How far back? It's getting late, and these mountain roads." The woman interrupted. 20 minutes if you don't dawdle, but it's your funeral if you want to drive mountain curves in the dark." Johnny checked his watch. 6:45 p.m., but the dense forest made it seem much later. Maybe we should wait until morning. Would it be possible to camp somewhere nearby tonight? The old woman's expression soured further. "This is private property," Sarah offered quickly. "We'd be happy to pay for the inconvenience. We just need a safe place to set up our tent." The woman considered this for a long moment, her pale eyes calculating. $50. Cash. You can camp behind the cabin, but don't come knocking on my door for anything. I don't have facilities for tourists. Johnny agreed, pulling out his wallet. "That's very fair. We really appreciate it." The woman snatched the bills without acknowledgement. "Name's Hollins. Martha Hollins. Been living on this mountain longer than you've been alive. There's a well behind the cabin for water, but don't waste it, and keep your fire small. These old trees catch easy." She turned and walked back inside without another word, leaving Johnny and Sarah standing uncomfortably in the gathering dusk. "Friendly," Sarah muttered as they returned to their truck to gather camping gear. They found the area behind Martha's cabin suitable for camping, level ground with a small fire ring made from stacked stones. The well Martha had mentioned was an old hand pump that produced clear, cold water after several vigorous strokes. As they set up their tent, Sarah noticed that Martha's cabin had no visible power lines or phone connections. No electric lights showed through the plastic-covered windows, just the flickering glow of what appeared to be oil, lamps, or candles. "How does she live up here completely cut off?" Sarah whispered to Johnny as they arranged their sleeping bags. "Some people prefer isolation," Johnny replied, but he felt the same unease. Martha Hollins seemed like someone who'd been living apart from modern society for decades, following rhythms and customs from an earlier time. Night fell quickly in the mountains. They built a small campfire and heated canned soup for dinner, speaking in low voices to avoid disturbing their reluctant hostess. The forest around them was unusually quiet. No owl calls, no rustling of small animals, just the crackling of their fire and the distant sound of wind through pine branches. At 9 p.m., they saw Martha emerge from her cabin carrying what looked like a lantern. She walked a circuit around her property, checking something at various points along the perimeter. She never acknowledged their presence, moving through her routine as if they didn't exist. "Think she's okay?" Sarah asked, watching the old woman's lantern bob through the darkness. "Probably just securing things for the night," Johnny said. But Martha's behavior felt more ritualistic than practical. They retreated to their tent around 10 p.m., grateful for the shelter but unsettled by their circumstances. Tomorrow they'd find Pierce Pond and leave Martha Hollins to her isolated mountain existence. As they lay in the tent in the dark of night, he asked Sarah why her shirt was on. She always slept with her body free of captivity. Sarah replied in a low whisper. "I seems off around here," Johnny responded in his version of a late-night radio DJ. "I want something," voice asked. "Come on, darling. You aren't scared of that old biddy, are you?" She said, "No, it's something in the air." Reluctantly, she took off her shirt and the darkness revealed those soft handfuls that Johnny so loved to cup. They spooned into dreams. But what dreams would come? The night became deathly still. Johnny awoke to a blood scream in the distance. The small fire was a bonfire before him now, heating his bare chest. Sarah and the tent were nowhere to be seen. The fire was so bright that he could only see darkness outside of it, as it roared like dragon breath, like hell itself had opened up its bowels. His clothes were gone as well. Only the sleeping bag beneath him remained. He saw elderly Martha's shadow walk between him and the fire. Her voice said, "What beats your heart so fast, lovely one?" Her garment was jet black now and almost like a robe. Johnny was frozen, not with fear but of something else he couldn't even understand. Martha began to chant beneath her breath in a guttural language he had never heard before. Her hair began to grow long, and the gray faded as raven jet-black hair took its place. Her eyes opened as in youth like pools of radiant oceans, captivating Johnny's soul like a cobra preparing to strike. Her skin tightened as youth so does. The robe opened, showing a full, abundantly firm body, the kind that don't exist. Her hips were full and wide, showing all the curves of a mountain of lust. The fire died down all at once to glowing pile of embers, and her body took on the color of a night's full moon with shadows of branches dancing. Across her and his skin, as the embers rose and met the cool night sky, Johnny saw stars like he had never seen before as the embers danced among them. He looked back at this new youthful Martha, who was now over him, caressing his hair. His body was ready for action as she was chanting, and the heat from her body was as of a fire. But his mind stayed true to Sarah. "Where is Sarah?" As he pushed Martha away, Martha began to laugh. "These there hills won't reseed themselves," laughing yet again. "Be with me and fill me with your lust." "The bloodline needs you," Johnny said. "Get away from me, whatever you are." Martha hissed. "You have no idea what you are dealing with, young man. Your lust in me, or your blood on the ground, makes no difference to me." In that moment, he felt an enormous hand slap his head from behind, his body thrust to the ground and lights out. Something was carrying him as easily as a man. Carried a rag doll, something with textured skin. Johnny was in and out of consciousness, trees passing by. Then rocks, and into cave. Dawn would come, peeking through the cracks in the earth above. Just enough to see shadows of things. He found himself tied to a tree root in the ceiling, suspended in air. He could hear Sarah whimpering in the corner, filthy. Tied up as well, but to the ground. Beside her was what appeared to be a boulder. but it wasn't at a boulder at all. It peered at him with large ebony eyes. Its skin was rough like unpolished rock, thick like a rhino. It petted Sarah and smelt her hair as she flinched in fear. The man-creature monstrosity gave out a deep, low hackle. Martha came in the cave clothed this time in red and black. Her skin was bright, youthful. Everything in the cave was dark due to her radiance. Her eyes an unholy, captivating blue that humans can't have. She reached down and held his manhood in one hand, almost toying with it. She looked up at him from beneath her eyebrows with malevolent smile and licked her lips. Her other hand circled around his face with traces of light like a light show as she uttered low words of a dead language again. Johnny could not speak, and his whole body became paralyzed. The enchantress spoke aloud, still holding him. "We used to live in towers made by our worshippers thousands of years ago, long before you vermin developed your mechanica. Your technology, as you say. Now we survive hidden waiting for you to destroy your world and come back. I will harvest your seed to bear my children, and my brother shall have children as well. We are tired of waiting, as the others say," she said. "You had your chance." And with the other hand revealed a stone knife. It tore through Johnny's abdomen like butter. Johnny tried to scream, but his voice was silent, and the creature and Martha gave out deafening laughs. "My brother needs to feed Johnny," Martha exclaimed, as she laid his extremity on a stone slab in the dim light and chanted over it. "All I need is just a drop or two of blood." But why stop there? Because where's the fun in that? The gray beast rose up, almost 10 feet tall. It began to walk to Johnny with what seemed almost like a smile. Martha said, "Hold on, little brother. I want him to see what he missed out on." Martha disrobed, the garments falling to the floor. Her skin shone like the moon at night. She turned to face him and raised her hands on top on her hair. Fingertips began to dig into the scalp, and almost black, red blood began to pour down her pale moon-tinted skin in sharp contrast of one another. Martha started peeling her skin like an orange, revealing an almost black, shiny, reddish skin with high cheekbones and shallow jaw. As the skin cleared her back, thin limbs jutted out from behind her. Every exposed part was covered in this dark, rotten blood fluid. Like a woman undressing, she wiggled off the last of the leg skin. Her back limbs snapped out, revealing dragon-like wings. She grabbed the flesh from the stone and walked out, saying, "Though you will die, we will keep some of you as our undead puppet. You may even hang around to see some of my brother's spawn be born. If my babies don't eat you first, we don't care what the elders say. We are tired of waiting for our turn." The gray beast wasted no more time, ripped Johnny down and began dragging him down a passageway. The branches sticking out of the wall caught Johnny's intestines and pulled them out. Like a bad string trail marker, he could smell the stench of the next chamber drawing near and making him reflux gag. The beast threw him in a pile of remnant carcasses of all types. Johnny was powerless. The beast rolled around on him and the corpses like dog on a crap pile, breaking bones and smearing the fluids across its body in snorts and grunts, then ripping Johnny's legs off and chewing on them like fried chicken on a Saturday night. All crunch. Once the beast felt full, it began to hang the intestines on the walls like a holiday festivity for the damned. And now we come full circle to Johnny and the screaming head. It most certainly wasn't Sarah. And the blood-soaked black demon enchantress entered and silenced the head with a touch. Her wicked framed arms picked it up and gave it a good wet kiss before taking a bite off the jaw. Johnny peered up and saw the evil woman's belly was round, full, and firm, like 8 months firm. She picked Johnny up with one hand like a sack of groceries and laughed. "It won't be long now, Daddy." She carried him, arms dragging on the filthy floor, down a corridor to a room with a seat, walked him to one of the earthen walls that had an antler sticking out. and cracked his spine down on it between his ribs like a catfish on a nail to be skinned. Then she laughed and said, "What sights you will see in the dawn of this new age. The fall of humanity under our feet will start in these dark mountains. The lake tourists offer us plenty of snacks and entertainment. You'll see my children born and rise up." She laughed. "He'll just have to be the silent dead type. You know, just hanging out."